pick up a marker, the three lengths, the widths of the marker can be interesting. If we just use the toe of the marker and put it on our tracing paper, it gives us one width. The full chisel, the heel, and the toe. I grew up in mid-Michigan, so we had lots of country line dancing. Heel, toe, heel, toe. At 100 scale, what could those three line widths represent? Full width of the chisel of the marker does what for us? Brilliant. So it's just over 30-ish feet. So it's around 30 feet, but that could represent a residential street. The heel of the marker could represent what? Well, it's just at around 10 feet, so it could work for an alley, okay? The toe of the marker is under 10 feet. What could that represent? A sidewalk, yeah, okay? So right away, just with this marker, you have the power to start laying out a transportation network on that site. All right. Isn't this fun? Are we having fun yet? All right, 100 foot on the scale bar. Tape that down, just grab a pen and do it legibly. Legible, blah. Legible. Legible, legible. Redo that just as legible, simple line work as you can. Make sure your line work crosses. Make sure you have closed shapes. Why? Because when we take it into Photoshop, I want to be able to dump paint onto closed shapes. So I'm going to draw, when I draw, I'm going to overlap my lines a little bit. Small houses, but we wanted smaller houses anyway, right? We sort of did. So, okay. So using that existing roadway that was there, I just reclaimed that, able to get some narrower lots on this side. Those are their backyards are facing this buffer, and I think you might be able to get some more revenue. Ha! So if my goal is more revenue, then we could potentially get a line of smaller homes there. The leftover, that's your playground, that's your park. Any leftover space, that's your park. That's your dog park. Another trick for continuing painting further, we can put a boundary around this whole thing. Lay color on top of something. So we can, when we're rendering these plans, we can use filters. If we don't like the filters, we can make a boundary around something. We can paint over something. I'm just going to quickly make a lasso here. Create a new layer. This then goes on a new layer. And I'll paint over that with a color. Maybe a different green, maybe a darker green, maybe a pale green, something like that. Make it a big brush. When we use a lasso like this, it only paints within this, which is nice. It will paint only within the boundaries of the lasso. Now, that's okay. If we have paint on a new layer and we double click on that layer, I have some blending options. Blend mode, multiply. Blend mode multiply is like layering colors. Not actually building. This could be a nice thing, right? When you're doing an overlay over something, or if you're trying to build up layers of color or build up layers of paint in this fashion. You can see that I'm adding to it. I'm not covering up my line work. So this is on its own layer. I've double clicked on the layer. I click blending mode multiply. When you're painting line art, this is one of the most commonly used tricks in Photoshop. Because you're not covering up your line. You are adding colors on top. Folks who do comic books, cartoons in Photoshop, this is one of the things they don't want to finish. Black. This is a way of layering color on top. Okay. So double click on the layer, go to blending mode, select multiply. And that starts to build up layers of color here. Okay. Then, so that's all wetlands now. That's all green lawn. Those are all wetlands. I want to do a little more cleanup in here. I want to go back to my background layer and just maybe get rid of some of this extra mess I've made. I'm very good at making messes today. To add to a selection, we can always add. You can add to a selection by holding down the Shift key. you can make the tolerance of a selection different by building up its tolerance, and it will pick more stuff in this tolerance window, which is just above your working window. And it'll select more stuff based on its tolerance. I'm just cleaning this up now because it's messy. I'm going to save it as a JPEG, and we're going to take it to Sketchup. Last week, I showed you CAD Mapper interface, which allowed you to download roads, basic design, some buildings, how that interface works. Last week we also we started to build up a concept plan in Photoshop. Real world site master planning. These are my friends at Morrison Captain Menzie in Fort Wayne. Today's workflow is precisely what they would do between one principal, design principal, and project manager. The principal would draw a site plan like that, in this case, scan it, and scan it. The next person, you can see the scale bar, you can see the parking, green, everything. Just go to the site concept. Scan it, bring it into Sketchup, and start to drop builders. That starts to inhabit the site plan with some quality. Also at this point, that they handed it to me, hired me to do hand draw outline. Everything, all colors, architectural materials. So that's what they gave to an illustrator, which is a hand over this Sketchup master. What it starts to do is it starts to allow the client to understand how the site comes together with buildings, trees, outdoor space. One principal lays it out by hand with the scale, the triangle, and the next person takes it into SketchUp, scales the model, starts to put buildings on from their personal digital library, from their firm's digital library. So that's how that workflow starts to happen quickly. And then, in this case, they handed it to an illustrator, and then I put a piece of trace over it and did the whole thing really up. I mean, a lot of different materials and shadows and things like that. Let's see if I can find it. MKM Lasky. So they gave that massing to me, and that's what I did. So I put a piece of trace over it, and I did what I did, which is trees, people, materials, and brick. And I took the massing model to the next level of recognition, starting to render materials, cars, but that's what they hired me to do. That's what they hired me for, because they didn't have time to go to this level. They wanted to hand it over to somebody to take it from the SketchUp model to another level of illustration. So that's what their workflow was. Now, each of these was a component from their digital library: apartments, memory care, cottage homes. And so this is a senior living community in Pulaski County, northeast Indiana, that they developed to that full extent. So if we were interested in taking our little plan and doing something with it, we might start with a new template. We can just use the simple architectural template, get rid of our scale figure, go to File, Import, and then find our little plan. I take it to the origin point. I drag it up a little bit, not too far, just a little bit. Zoom extents, orbit around it a little bit using the orbit tool. And then I grab the tape measure tool, get in as close to our scale bar as possible. Just get in there. Da, da, da. Then, after I click it, type 100 single quote return. Do you want to resize the model? Yes. That model is now scaled. Then I can go to Box, and based on what I share with you and what you share with each other, we can go to Box and share SketchUp models with each other in that PLAN261 resources folder. So we have a few housing types shared to this fashion here. I've got a simple tree that works really well for things. But again, we have to make some decisions in terms of our workflow. Do we want to start placing trees in SketchUp, or do we want to place them later in Photoshop? Questions we want to make as we consider our workflow. At any rate, we have the opportunity to start grabbing some buildings and placing them directly into the plan. So I can download that. I may open it in a separate. I'm trying my best to downsave them so that folks who are running the 2017 version can do that. I may end up opening it in its own window, cutting it, and then pasting it into this new model. It is scaled to the new model. Get in there. And start placing houses on the lot. I might grab it and move it. I might grab it and rotate it. If I take this rotate tool, I grab one of the corners, I extend a line out like so, I then can turn the whole house about that clear axis and then place the house, starting to place on the lot. Your drawing hopefully has the setbacks as part of it now, so you have a greater understanding of how that house can sit on that lot. With the perspective tool turned on under camera perspective, right now you can see that the whole plane is vanishing to 2 vanishing points. If I turn that off and then I go camera standard view ISO, I can get a true isometric of the site. Everything at true length. So if you're interested in isometrics in the presentation, this is the fastest way to take a drawing with isometric. So you can either Photoshop over this, or trace over it and draw. I was hired to do an isometric on your team of those. I found the fast way to take the site, bring it into Sketchup, click it into ISO, turn it out again. Now, this is the fastest way to get a 2-dimensional drawing into isometric, rather than re-drawing it. So that may be a territory that you're interested in. If you would like to start to use isometrics, really stacking layers of information in your presentation so that you can start talking about this. But at this point, we can get this ready. If I turn off, I go to view, and I turn off axes, get rid of the axes, turn off the shadows, I don't want those. There's a fog setting, which is kind of fun. Some people like that. I just want to deselect off of that. It gets some houses in here. This is ready to take somewhere. And then I go to File, Export, 2D Graphic, PNG, Options, make it big. The view size is just going to be the resolution of your monitor. So I like to make it a little bit bigger, 3,000 pixels or so. Anti-alias and a transparent background. Okay, export. So we've now exported the isometric view with the houses on it. So if we go to Box, if I can remember how, Box, cutouts, people, trees, people in plan view, people in autumn. I've got a couple of extra links to other sites that have more cutouts in them. But I bought this cutout package. It was great because it had a great variety of trees. And so I'm providing that for you. Normally what I do is go to a place called Creative Market. And Creative Market is a place where graphic designers can sell each other's work to each other in many cases to build up elements that way. So in elevation view or isometric view, the simple cutout tree will work. Once we get it to scale, it will work. Okay. It will work. Elevation view, section view, that will not work in plan. Okay? This is why the isometric view can be a great advantage to you, is that you can grab a few trees from these cutouts, replicate them, copy them, and start placing them on the site. And it generates the imagery quickly, which we like, right? So those are all PNG files. And we just get them in here. This works, again, this works in Illustrator or Photoshop. Got to get them pretty small down in there. And you can start to get a sense of reality for your site very quickly. It starts to look great. The client will start to understand your website, flashing the great reputation. Boy, that makes more sense, doesn't it? Okay. I hope. There's a variety of cutouts here. There's different trees. There's shrubs. There's grasses. So those are all available there to you. Okay. So either in section or in isometric, you can use tree cutouts and start to populate this very quickly. Okay. In terms of starting to make a section or an isometric. To make a section of a site, once you get some buildings going, what I like to do is zoom down into here and decide where the section cut's going to be. And I make a little sandwich board, a little sign, just a tiny little thing built up, just a tiny little thing there, standing on a lot line or standing where I want the section cut to happen. And then I go to View. Sorry, I go to Tools, Section Plane, and then I tell the section plane to attach itself to my little sign, the little sandwich. And what the section plane will do, because it needs to attach to something, right? It looks like it wants to attach to the house, and no. I want my section cut to go in between these two houses. So I tell it to marry itself to that little sign, and it will cut away the foreground. Cuts it all away. Okay? So in extents, you can see SketchUp now has cut away that portion of the sign. Very cool. And bringing it into reservice SketchUp will cut that sleeve. Then I go to camera, standard view, probably the left, and I can get a site section of my development. Okay. Export that to poster. SketchUp has that ability. So this is the beginning of how we can use SketchUp to start to cut sections through your development once you get some buildings on it, okay? We might select an appropriate style. I think Neil told you about this. He also has a short video in terms of how these things appear in the SketchUp model. Yes? Okay. Then you can export that view as a 2D graphic, as a PNG, options, size, transparent background, and that can become something you insert into Photoshop. Okay? I have photos of the site, you have photos of the site. You could very well drop buildings into a camera view that involves photos of the site. Right? So if we go to my website, just link to Canvas. I will link it to Box quickly. Indiana. Oh, I think I had a Muncie gallery. Goodness sakes, where did I put it? We added a College of Architecture and Planning. Yes. So there may be a site view that's particularly interesting. There y'all are. There we are. That's fantastic. Okay. Large. And I'll save that image. Photoshop. Close out of this. Close out of this. Open up that image. It's not very high resolution, but it's okay. We'll make this 3,000 pixels wide. Just extend it. There y'all are, wandering around. We could then open our camera view of the houses. A PNG. We can start deleting away the sky in the background and even some of the foreground. Get rid of that. And get rid of stuff. There may be some things some things from that drawing you want to keep and some things you don't. See what, but you notice though, there's elements of that site plan that are visible. That can be a good thing, but that could also be a bad thing. Maybe we only want the buildings part of this view. But if we save it as a PNG, then that's a transparent thing. That can be a very good thing, because then we can layer it on top of other things. We can collage it on top of this site format, for instance. So I can go place embedded, site massing, and the houses go right in. You're there, so I know where the horizon line is. And make some decisions about then the scale, relative scale. You're there, which is great because now I can scale the building around you. So it's always good to have people in your site programs. Okay. Then we can go to our textures folder. Go to our textures folder on box. Grab a texture. Any texture will do. Download. Well, that's gnarly. That's really something. So I put that there. Place that in. Scale it, rotate it. And then hit return, and then with the transform tools, I can push that puppy around. Perspective, I can make that do lots of things. Look at that. What is that? That could be the beginning of a walkway, or a plaza, or a, with skew and perspective, I can grab any of those textures and start to do some things with it. Maybe this is I don't know, but just with those simple tools, you can start to use textures in interesting ways. You start to create paving, start to create patio, those types of surfaces. And then, you having fun yet? You start placing the new trees and the new people. New trees and new people. New trees, new people. Oh, the new trees. We put the new trees. We like the new trees. The trees are nice. And we place the trees and place them right in. Once we select them, once we find the trees that we like, you can start to collage in things around a very simple SketchUp model. So that gets you to a point where you can start creating presentation level, professional level graphics that accelerate the discussion of the future of this property. Because that's what people are concerned about. They're concerned about the future of this property and their property value relative to it. So the more options that we can investigate, the more options that can be examined, given the political reality of the site, the more adept you are as an emerging planner to be ready for this context, because it can get contentious sometimes. I can tell you stories, I think I was starting to tell you the story of when I was thumped at a meeting. Thumping is when a citizen walks up to you, takes their two fingers and starts thumping your chest, and they start saying, "You listen to me now, planner," and it is an ultimate physical way of the citizenry engaging planning officials. It can be a frightening thing, but the first time, every planner remembers the first time that they get thumped at a public meeting. I will say that, because when a citizen becomes so angry that they actually physically engage. So yes, you could. Today's day and age, oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. More cutouts. People, let's just get a couple of people in here. The And I bought this cutout pack because it saves time, and because we could very well, I've got an online textures generator here for you to look at as well. But I just felt it was, for the price, it was worth it just to grab a number of cutouts of people and trees to get a pack going together. And we'll use it from year to year. So. Oops, it needs to be up front. Just remember your layers order. It's like Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. That's a record your parents listen to. His head needs to be near the horizon line. And he's ready to go. Sometimes what I like to do is view rulers, and I grab a guideline, pull it down to where I know the horizon line is, and then all my scale figures will align to that. Sometimes that is extremely helpful. You'll notice a lot of the cutouts are people walking away from the viewer. That keeps the person whose picture this is from suing us, because we're not technically using our likeness. When you start to collage stuff together like this, everything comes in as a smart object and as a layer. If you want to manipulate it further, sometimes what you have to do is double-click on the layer, right-click on the layer, or control-click on the layer, and rasterize that layer. Sometimes that is necessary. Rasterize the layer, rasterize the layer. When you do that, you can start manipulating it as an image. Let's say I want to just bump down the opacity of that. I can do that if I rasterize the layer. Stuff of that nature. If I wanted the people to be less opaque, that's what I would do first. I would rasterize the layer. And that way they aren't covering up all of the view. Sometimes that's a necessary thing. Sometimes we like to blur the people. So we'll just put a slight blur on those people, and they become less likely to grab our viewer. Sometimes different artists or illustrators or even architects and planners will blur or distort the people so that the eye does not focus on them. So there's different effects that occur once you bring them in and rasterize the object. You can continue to do more effects of that nature. Okay? I will end the recording there.